In the remote, rugged landscapes of rural Peru, where the mighty Andes yield to the impenetrable Amazon rainforest, a tale of unimaginable suffering and bittersweet liberation unfolded. For 20 long years, Mufasa, a once majestic mountain lion, was forced to live a life of confinement and abuse. His days were spent chained to the back of a decrepit circus truck, his natural power and grace reduced to a pitiful display for traveling audiences. This is the story of Mufasa's journey from the darkness of captivity to a brief yet profound taste of freedom. A journey that continues to spark debate and inspire action against animal cruelty. Traveling circuses have long captivated audiences with their dazzling performances and exotic attractions. Beneath the bright lights and elaborate costumes, however, lies a hidden world of exploitation and neglect. In many parts of the world, including Peru, wild animals are taken from their natural habitats and forced into lives of captivity, their spirits crushed under the weight of human greed. Despite progressive legislation enacted in Peru in 2011 to ban wild animals from circuses, the law proved difficult to enforce in remote areas. It was in these secluded corners that circuses continued to operate, hiding the truth behind vibrant facades and mobile shows. For the owners of these circuses, animals like Mufasa were not living beings with instincts and rights. They were merely tools for profit, a means to draw in crowds and generate income. In the eyes of these exploiters, the freedom of a wild animal was a luxury to be denied, while their audiences were kept blissfully unaware of the cruel reality behind the spectacle. The glittering tents and familiar circus music masked the hidden horror of animals kept in deplorable conditions, chained and confined, with their natural behaviors suppressed by years of inhumane treatment. Mufasa's early years remain shrouded in mystery, but experts believe that he was captured from the wild as a young cub. Once part of the untamed wilderness, he was thrust into a life that stripped him of every natural instinct. For 20 years, he lived chained to the back of a rusting pickup truck, his only companions the remnants of outdated circus equipment and the occasional glimpse of a human face. Confined to a cramped and filthy cage, Mufasa was never allowed to roam free, hunt, or experience the invigorating pulse of nature. The physical toll of his captivity was evident. Once a powerful and robust creature, the prolonged confinement had left him with weakened muscles and a diminished stature. His once sharp eyes, which should have gleamed with the vibrant spark of the wild, now appeared hollow and resigned. Every step he took was a painful reminder of the life he had lost, a life that should have been filled with the thrill of the chase, the beauty of unspoiled wilderness, and the freedom to roam vast territories. The circus that held Mufasa captive was notorious for its itinerant lifestyle. Constantly moving between isolated villages in northern Peru, the circus owners deliberately chose remote areas to avoid detection by law enforcement. Their mobile operation ensured that Mufasa's suffering remained largely unknown to the public and regulators alike. Every new village was just another stage for their illicit performances, a place where Mufasa was forced to act as nothing more than an exotic prop in a grim show of human exploitation. In these isolated corners of Peru, where local authorities struggled to monitor the vast expanses of wilderness, the circus managed to thrive. The rules meant to protect wild animals from such treatment were flouted with impunity. Instead of ensuring the dignity and freedom of creatures like Mufasa, the law was rendered nearly ineffective by the remote settings and secretive operations of these traveling shows. For 2 decades, the cruelty continued unabated, hidden behind the festive veneer of the circus. In a world where silence often shrouds the suffering of abused animals, it sometimes takes a single act of courage to ignite change. In early 2025, Animal Defenders International, ADI, a global organization dedicated to fighting animal cruelty, received an anonymous tip that would change everything. The informant revealed the location of a traveling circus operating in a secluded village, where a mountain lion was being kept in horrendous conditions in blatant violation of the country's ban on wild animals in circuses. The tip set off a flurry of activity within ADI. Known for their daring rescues and unwavering commitment to animal welfare, the organization quickly coordinated with local wildlife authorities to plan a rescue operation. The mission was clear: liberate Mufasa from the chains that had bound him for far too long and restore, however briefly, his natural right to freedom. The rescue operation was fraught with challenges from the very start. With the circus constantly on the move, the rescue team had to track down the elusive show and confront the entrenched interests of its owners. When the team finally located the circus, the scene was nothing short of heart-wrenching. There was Mufasa, chained and caged amidst rusting equipment, his eyes reflecting years of suffering and isolation. What followed was an intense 8-hour standoff between law enforcement officials and the circus owners. The rescuers, armed with a mix of determination and compassion, demanded the immediate release of Mufasa. The circus operators, fiercely protective of their illicit business, resisted vehemently. Tensions mounted as negotiations dragged on, with the fate of the mountain lion hanging precariously in the balance. Eventually, the pressure proved too much. Reluctantly, the circus owners conceded, surrendering not only Mufasa, but also a condor that had been illegally held by the circus. The moment of liberation was captured on video, a moment that resonated deeply with animal lovers and activists worldwide. As the heavy metal shackles were cut away, Mufasa stood slowly, as if in disbelief. Each hesitant step he took was a small defiance against the years of enforced confinement. For the first time in 2 decades, he was free to move beyond the confines of a small, oppressive cage. The immediate aftermath of the rescue marked the beginning of a long and challenging journey toward recovery. Mufasa was carefully transferred to a specially designed transport cage meant not for display, but for safe passage to a wildlife sanctuary deep in the Peruvian jungle. The journey was arduous, marked by rough terrain and unpredictable weather. Yet every mile brought him closer to a place where he could begin to heal. Veterinarians and animal behaviorists were on hand to provide urgent care. Mufasa's condition was fragile, his muscles were weak, and his health had been compromised by years of neglect. The team administered vital medical treatment and ensured he was nourished with a diet designed to kickstart his recovery. Despite the physical scars and deep-seated trauma, there was an undeniable spark of resilience in his eyes, a glimmer of the wild spirit that had refused to be entirely extinguished. Upon arrival at the wildlife sanctuary, Mufasa was introduced to an environment that was the polar opposite of his past life. The sanctuary, nestled within a protected forest, offered expansive space, towering trees, and a serene ambiance that resonated with the natural rhythm of the wild. When the door of his transport cage was finally opened, Mufasa hesitated. The open space, the rich scents of earth and foliage, and the gentle sounds of the forest were all so foreign after 20 years of confinement. Yet, with cautious steps, he began to explore. Each movement, though tentative, was imbued with the wonder of rediscovery. For a brief period, Mufasa experienced the true meaning of freedom, roaming a vast forest, stretching his legs, and even testing his newfound mobility. It was a moment of poetic justice, a poignant reminder of what nature had intended for him all along. Jan Creamer, president of Animal Defenders International, recalled the scene with a mix of joy and sorrow. "Watching Mufasa step into his new life was incredibly moving," she said. "For those few moments, he was truly free, free to live, free to be, and free to rediscover the wild that had been stolen from him." However, the sanctuary could not erase the harsh realities of Mufasa's past. Despite the best efforts of his caretakers, the effects of 20 years of confinement were too deep to overcome. The severe malnutrition, muscle atrophy, and chronic health issues that had developed over time culminated in a heartbreaking decline. Within just a few months of tasting freedom, Mufasa's body began to fail him. He succumbed to kidney failure and other complications that had long been masked by the immediate urgency of rescue and rehabilitation. His passing was a somber moment, a bittersweet end to a life that had been marred by cruelty. Yet even in death, Mufasa's legacy was undeniable. His brief taste of freedom, however fleeting, became a powerful symbol of resistance against exploitation and a rallying cry for animal rights activists across the globe. Mufasa's story struck a chord far beyond the confines of the Peruvian jungle. It ignited a passionate outcry among wildlife conservationists and the general public alike. Animal Defenders International and other advocacy groups used his narrative as a catalyst to push for stricter enforcement of animal protection laws. His journey highlighted the urgent need for robust legal measures to prevent wild animals from being exploited for human entertainment. In the wake of his rescue, campaigns and petitions surged, demanding justice for all animals suffering under similar circumstances. Mufasa became not only a victim of cruelty, but also a symbol of hope, a reminder that even after prolonged abuse, the desire for freedom and dignity remains intrinsic to every living creature. His story urged governments and communities to rethink the ethics of using wild animals for entertainment and to ensure that no creature is ever forced to endure a life of confined misery again. Though Mufasa's journey ended in tragedy, his impact continues to reverberate. His story has become a touchstone for discussions about animal rights, the morality of circuses, and the broader issue of wildlife conservation. Every time someone reflects on his ordeal, they are reminded of the stark contrast between the freedom inherent in nature and the confines imposed by human exploitation. Mufasa's brief days in the sanctuary were marked by moments of wonder and tentative exploration, moments that underscored what all wild animals deserve: a life of freedom, dignity, and respect. His struggle has sparked important conversations, driving efforts to reform how societies view and treat wild creatures. Activists now use his story to advocate for stronger protections and better living conditions for all animals, ensuring that his legacy serves as a beacon for change. The battle to protect wild animals from exploitation is ongoing. Organizations like Animal Defenders International continue to lead the charge, drawing on stories like Mufasa's to educate the public and push for legislative reforms. They work tirelessly to dismantle the networks that allow such cruelty to persist, and to ensure that no other animal endures the same fate. Mufasa's life, marked by years of captivity followed by a brief glimpse of the wild, reminds us that every creature has an inherent right to freedom. As his story continues to inspire, it serves as a call to action for all who believe in compassion and justice. By strengthening laws and enforcing them rigorously, society can take meaningful steps to protect the natural world and honor the lives of creatures who have suffered in silence. In the end, Mufasa's journey is a profound testament to the resilience of the wild spirit. Though his time among the living was marred by cruelty, his brief encounter with freedom resonated with a power that transcends his tragic end. His life, though cut short, has sown the seeds of change and inspired countless individuals to advocate for the rights of animals worldwide. As we remember Mufasa, let us honor his legacy by committing ourselves to a future where no animal is forced to live in chains, a future where the wild is free and every creature is treated with the respect and dignity it deserves. His story is a somber reminder of past injustices and a hopeful beacon for a world where the freedom of nature is never again compromised. Mufasa's journey, from a life defined by confinement to a brief taste of the untamed wilderness, remains etched in our collective memory as a symbol of both suffering and hope. His legacy calls upon us to rethink our relationship with the natural world, to advocate for those without a voice, and to work tirelessly toward a future where every wild creature can roam free. May his memory serve as an enduring inspiration for change and a constant reminder that true freedom is the right of every living being.